session of Chobi Mela VIII, and it's not an accident that we've saved this particular presentation till the end. The person I'm going to introduce you to is someone who'll be very familiar to many of you, but perhaps not to those from outside. A very important photographer who's had a very important contribution, but also someone who has played a very important role, not simply as a photographer, but in establishing the standing of photography in Bangladesh. Sadly, photography has not always been understood, not always been respected, and it has required people to, through their presence, through their personality, through their work, provide credibility and respectability to the profession. And Anwar Hussein is certainly one of the people who's played an extremely important role in that. There's a lot of people who've been here in the last week or so who've remarked on the changes that have taken place in Bangladesh, the very high quality of photography in Bangladesh. And it would be wrong to assume that those of us in front of you now are the only ones who've done it. It's happened because of a lot of people who've done incredibly good work behind the scenes. Some of them are not around anymore, but they have left their legacy, and I would like to take this opportunity to remember them all. Certainly there was and is Bangladesh Photographic Society, an extremely important organization which really played the role of holding the photographic movement together. When I joined the Bangladesh Photographic Society, it didn't have its own place, it didn't have its own gallery, it didn't have a darkroom, but it did have a very important thing. It had a soul and it had a little newspaper. A newsletter, an E5 newsletter printed in newsprint. And when I took over the running of the society, we were in a huge mess. I mean, for a start, hugely in debt, in a disarray in many senses, and it was something that needed to be resurrected. And a person I turned to at that time to help me in that process was Anwar Hussein. His work was known, his work was something I admired, but here was a person who was not only a very talented photographer, but very articulate, in both Bangla and English, very conversant, knew the scene very well, and also had many other skills as a designer, as someone with a graphic sense, and I felt that this was one person who could really transform this magazine. And one of the things that I at that time lamented was the fact that we had a photographic society newsletter which didn't have photographs, largely because we didn't have the money. It was done in newsprint. So Anwar is in some ways a difficult guy to deal with, but I took him on anyway, and our idea was that it would have photographs. But as I mentioned, he was the right person to do that, but he was also very exacting, and he didn't want the newsprint newsletter to come out as it was. He wanted better paper, he wanted fine art paper, he wanted two-color printing, he wanted it to be an offset. At that time we were printing in letterpress. But he's always also prepared to work very hard at making it happen. So one of the things he did was he was able to pull in a large number of people from various places, and that was the time, because prior to that, the newsletter was really that, a newsletter. It had news items, information about contest, what had happened there, a compilation of news items. Anwar was the person who transformed it into what I consider a literary and a photographic magazine, albeit in a very small manner. His work was something which was also very important for us, because at that time there were two schools of photography. There was the salon photography, which Bangladesh Photographic Society largely practiced, and these were pretty pictures following the rules of thirds and all the other stupid rules that we told in photographic school and camera clubs. And the photojournalists, who completely rejected us because they thought we were not really photographers. There was also a problem at the other end. The Photographic Society people we considered the press photographers to not be really photographers because they were not artists. They were people merely providing illustrations. So there was this very big divide between the two, to the extent that the Press Photographers Association brought out a rule that if one of their members joined the Bangladesh Photographic Society, that member would lose his or her membership. It was as extreme as that. But even within that space, we continued working, and Anwar played a very important role. He also played an important role in setting up the Federation of Photographic Society, which attempted to merge these many disparate streams and put them together. I'm not going to talk about his work because you will see his work and he will talk about his own work, and he's a very articulate photographer, so he certainly doesn't need me to talk about it. But I think it is worthwhile for us to remember that here was a person who took on photography at a time when photography was not as well known, as respected, as rewarding, and certainly as easy to do as it is today. And I think if we look at the evolution of photography in Bangladesh, if you look at the changes that have taken place, Anwar Hussein's presence is a very important turning point in photography, not only in Bangladesh, but I think for that time in the region. So I'm not taking any more time. Someone I'm very proud to present, Anwar Hussein.
শুভ সন্ধ্যা আমার আলোকচিত্রী বন্ধুরা, এত নতুন প্রাণ এখানে দেখে আমি খুব আনন্দিত অনুভব করছি। মাই ডিয়ার expatriate or visiting photographer friends, good evening and bonjour. আমাকে ক্ষমা করবে ইংরেজি বলার জন্য, এখানে অনেকেই আছেন যারা ইংরেজি না বললে অসুবিধা। I am just a humble photographer who tries to fulfill the necessities of life. Pain which lasts in our life. It's not a question of poverty, it's a question of pain in the bounty of nature and human emotions that exist in this country and in the world. And because in Bangladesh there is a lot of incidences, a lot of stories that the pain continues with more speed and flow than the monsoon winds or the flow of the rivers. People find their way to express themselves in the Bhatiali songs, in the Lalon beliefs, in photographic activities, and that was exactly that what I did. I come from a very poor family in Bangladesh. I used to say it is from a slum area. I was born in a slum area which still exists. But my journalist friends used to say, oh, it's a bidonville, not a slum, Anwar. You don't talk like a slum person. You don't behave like a slum person. You don't photograph a slum person either. I was very happy to have the association here, and which happened today. And we come to this par karo amore type of situation where towards the end of my life I have this great opportunity to exhibit to you and to communicate with my images in the gelatin and pixel life to the humanity and to Bangladesh here. But when I was looking at the slideshow which just happened, the collection of slideshows of the young photographers here, my impression was that there was the impression of sadness which engulfed me, from which I have been trying to run away, and last 45 years trying to take photographs and running about like a moving rain in the storm, or like the crows, or like the fireflies or Junaki Buka, which sort of moves around a little nervous, a little. But my conviction was the happiness came in the moment when I looked at 21 portfolios, small collections here, that probably my exhibition in audience process could be replaced by a selection of your work which was so unique. Congratulations to you for that. I'm really moved today. And my sadness was taken over by the quality of the images and by the attempts you have made, and it has been very evident. We played a key part in the beginning of photography in the classical style, and it was mostly my gelatin work, borrowed films. I couldn't afford films, I couldn't afford cameras, but what you do today with pixels, digital cameras, but especially the thought of modern interpretations in the Bangladeshi traditional life, which is still traditional to a great extent. Dhaka is not Bangladesh. It is amazing to watch this essay which goes there today. Going back to my source, I will divide my talk into three parts. The first part I will talk or chatter a little more, which many people were nervous about my taking a mic. They preferred I show only images and talk. And second part will be a set of images which has been taken from my last book. It's a book named The Ballad of Bangladesh. Because of the sadness I felt in your work, I would rather call it was not a ode to joy or Beethoven or whatever, but it was a ballad of Bangladesh in modernity, an extremely modern, contemporary, almost cubist sense of work. And I created my own ballad, or tried to create my own ballad in the very classical sense, and tried to compile a book in 2000 with the beginning part of my work, about 25 or 30 years of work. We attempted to come in the form of a book, a copy of which you can see in Alliance Française. And with great pain and protest, I would like to tell you, it's not only the hartals which take place in Bangladesh. This book was stopped by a politician of Bangladesh, and it never saw the light of the day. The publisher or whoever gave the money to publish this book was told not to destroy the book really, but to use it when he can't find this book. If you find some copies, it are leaked out copies. I had another book which was a voyage through Bangladesh done by a television station of Bangladesh, and after a few copies were sold, the TV station was stopped by the Bangladesh government. Someone was asked to leave the country in 1.5 hours notice, and leave the country in a day's notice, and my book saw the end of the day. This is what has been happening. So I strongly protest to the fact which we have been telling in interviews with Shahidul Alam, that our life has been like that. In Bangladesh, we have tried our best to achieve this art form for the benefit of mankind. Shahidul Alam, Drik and Pathshala have played a great role in achieving this, always fighting against bureaucracy and people who do not understand images. And it's a love and hate relationship, but win-win situation for us whose heart takes over the pain and the political barriers which create. So the selection you will see is a selection from that book, condensed selection which was done by Mune Muasif, with his great endeavors in his curating this show and communicating with me all through. It was extraordinary what happened, and I'm very happy about it. I insisted on this show that we should show the pictures first. A part of the book should go. And by the way, the exhibition you see in Alliance Française, and that is exactly the images chosen from this book. So it is 23 images there, which gives you a feeling of not 23 or 46, but as if you have seen Bangladesh. I was very surprised that with a proper curation, with a little bit of images, you can get a feeling of totality. So this is an extension of that. It goes left side and right side extension. The way my photography happened is I came from, I told you, for a very poor family, and as I mentioned in another day in an interview, that when my father, who was illiterate, was young, and there was a day when my family could not eat, and he picked up some money on the street, some Pakistani money, some paisa, 10 paisa or 25 paisa, brought it home and asked my grandma that if the money could be used. She said, son, it is all right because the family has not eaten today, and when we recover the money, there will be a time when we will pay 7 times of it to the poor people. I don't know if it ever happened. So what I try in my life is, I try to pay with my work to my countrymen the 7 times of gift, if I can, and I'll go on doing it till the last day. So that way, when I started growing up in a family where it was almost impossible to buy even a camera, so I borrowed a camera from a friend, second-hand camera, 30 taka, akpa clack, like Kodak Brownie, you press the button, we do the rust type of camera, because his grandmother was not happy that he takes pictures and he will be a spoiled brat. if he takes pictures. And so I bought that camera with a part of my scholarship money, and I used to usually donate all the money to my family. And my work continued by borrowed films, which were called refill. Our generation was often doing refill. Very often you couldn't even buy a film, a proper roll of 120 or 35. And a lot of the work you will see here is a real mix and conglomeration of not internationalization. It's a strange mix of materials and art and culture and happiness and pain. There were 10, 20 different cameras used, which I used to borrow from different friends, different rolls of films, which used to come from Shadon Rai or someone who will cut a movie stock into 100 feet or 50 feet, which rests. I work in movies. So what happens when the only 30 feet is left cannot be used for a shot that is cut in the dark room, and it is given in a packet to young people, and that is refilled and sold at Newmarket or given to you every Friday. And you go under quilt. And my first time I went under multiple quilts, my young sister, I told her that when I do the last thing, when I do the last part, sorry, let there be light, so I'll be. Unfortunately, that film was not finished. So I was asked, I asked my sister, little sister, she was 4 years old, I think. She was amazingly watching me, what is Bhaiya doing? And I was going under multiple quilts, which were borrowed from my mother, my brother, and my relatives to make a proper coverage of a tent or a pyramid to be dark enough. So I went all under that, had closed all the windows, but even then I thought some light may leak. And I had asked her that when I go the final inside, and it was, I had to explain her 3 times, you should go out and close the door, and then go out of the room and don't touch me. So then all I remember, I went deep inside and suddenly heard bang. Apparently she slammed the door, and I heard her shouting, "Mama, Mama, come quickly. Bhaiya has become mad." See, you see, this is how it started. And my dear wife, who died by suicide, was helping me to make prints in a darkroom similarly made, and with chemicals bought in the market, where I'll make 4 liters or 5 liters of chemicals and enter the darkroom with lots of preparation, a cup of tea in the morning, and at 6 o'clock, and then at around 7 o'clock, I'll find all chemical has become dark like tar. Alcatra, and something was wrong. Instead of metal, it was probably wheat for chapati or something, and this went on and on. But despite that, we made prints, and today in my life, I'm trying to organize my lifetime work, scanning, and very happy to participate in this manifestation of culture, art, and gelatin art. There is almost nothing of the pixel thing here, and with the help of many people, I could continue with the Bangladesh Photographic Society, or my parents, who would rather not eat for one meal, but help me to continue photography. Please try to understand, it is especially for my foreign friends who have come. For a person like me, even today, there are many young photographers here, I am sure, because sometimes they approach me. It is very difficult for a family to spare a camera or even buy a roll of film to continue digital today or hard disk. At our period, to buy a roll of film was the cost. The film cost could cover food for 4 or 6 people for a day. Now the family's question and the young protagonist or artist mind was whether to have food for the family, the loving mother, the loving grandmother, the small child or brother, for one whole day, or to continue photography. That's how we continued step by step, trying to reach the sky, trying to bring happiness in our own soul. Today when I talk, Shahidul Alam mentioned somebody, I have a sensation that when I entered this room and someone asked me to take the light and let there be a light, I have a sensation they are there. The souls of great photographers who influenced me in this country, like say Bijan Sarkar, Manjur Alam Beg, Nawajesh Ahmed, Naibuddin Ahmed. I have a feeling they are here, just at the different corners of this room, in the ceiling. And in the center, perhaps, the soul of my mother, my grandmother, and my wife, who gave their life partly to help me continue my photography. And I try my best to make their souls happy, join them someday with a lot of pixel images and a lot of gelatin images left behind to inspire you. Thank you.
Yang
didn't get enough money by his youth, and I didn't realize this photo will become so effective. This is part of my series. You saw 2, 3 in the exhibition, where I have worked with my own community in Old Dhaka and created themes like labor, security, education, etc. And 39 situations I covered mostly. Clothing. This is my only severe experimentation, which is really simple. No Photoshop business. A 6x7 camera, white paper, tripod. That. I had to follow this man for 5-10 minutes. 2 days Dhaka, it won't be possible. When I came back from Pune Film Institute after 3 years of study, I got upon rickshaws and their backs immediately had a profound psychological impact on me. So I worked about 3 months on their backs, and I have a strong series of pictures on them. Overtaking prohibited for the Prime Minister. I think Alam was there when I took this picture. Alam, you remember? This was when Muhammad Ali visited Bangladesh, and I had a permission to film President Zia and Muhammad Ali. At that time, I suddenly took my still camera and made that shot with the 300mm tele. Friendship, which is very often misunderstood by my Western friends. That was the very first picture I got award, taken in the morning, 31.8. This was my mother. She suffered so much that I wanted to represent her with her hands. I have another picture of her, the 2 hands, but with a cord around it, just loosely put. But then she's my mother, you see, that I never printed. I just printed that. This man, I don't know where he evolved from before Islam came in so strong in Bangladesh. It is in Anwar. I was trying to make pictures, found it absolutely bland, nothing subject. Suddenly he appears from below and said, "Hey, how are you? Assalamu alaikum." And he wanted to be photographed, and he posed for 10 minutes and they left. It says, we don't have lords, etc. We are all friends. All those political slogans. I started working abstract from my very beginning because of architecture from 71. So this was when I was going to my village. I just, as a naughty boy, I took my sunglass in front and photographed it. My series with boggies, and they were put, and my series with Ramayana characters, I put them on a big paper and 8x10 print and rephotographed, etc. This is a series we'll talk about when I go to stage again, named Narcissism. This is my dear friend Hossain Chandan, when we used to meet together, and now we see mostly his head. Part of that series. This was part of a film I shot, which was Ancient Times, and between the rehearsal, suddenly this ship comes through, and I had a still photograph of modernity, but in the actual film you don't see. Well, this was the very first picture, first day, taken by my late wife, and I didn't realize the strength she had in her imagery. She made a few rolls of film, etc. Thank you. That was my little Bangladesh for you. Can we have lights there, please? I greatly thank you for your patience to look at it, but I would rather like to make a small note, which I gave advice to many people. I work a little bit in cinema, not little bit, I made 15 long films, 30 documentaries. So that's little for a global context in the Bangladesh situation. But I find in Bangladesh most of the time, the projectors are too bright. The projectors which are bought in Bangladesh are very often for public places. They are pro projectors, they're very high lumen, and for a small theaters like this is at least 100% brighter than necessary, which can be really adjusted, but we didn't have time to adjust individually. Really adjusted by control of brightness becomes half, and contrast, as far as this group of pictures were shown to you, should have been doubled. Then it would have been correct. There could be another thing. In the computer, when I watched in the beginning, it was set at color setup. So you know, when we do bring color to black and white, usually the contrast decreases and the brightness increases. So it is always 25%, you have to readjust. So probably it read the color plates correctly, the title pages, but the photographs were too bright and less contrast. Apologies for that, and I didn't want to stop the projection and create a mess during the show. It has to be done individually for each person. Whatever little nervous, humble talk, it was not humble really. I tried to talk in the beginning, and my example of the pictures you have seen from my early work with borrowed cameras. I still borrow cameras and film age and manually done developing and printing. I would like to invite you questions. After that, I might go back to in the contact sheet to about 10 pictures and explain them a little more to you. Any questions, please? The power I saw in the 21 portfolios, these guys could floor me down here. They are so good in your work. So you should ask me questions, attack me. Come on. Yes, please. Sorry? Why? I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Old age.
Completely random question. You said you started off working with a very basic camera.
$2, yes. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you like to use other people's cameras.
Yes.
Have you ever made your camera for yourself? I saw one of the artists in Chobi Mela exhibit did that, and I was just curious.
No. I'm a little bit of a lazy escapist photographer in the sense to do something with devotion. You need to be at it, you know. So I had a phase where I did monochrome work and with borrowed films. That's it. Final. And because I couldn't afford a good camera, I started with a 30 taka, about $2 camera at that time, and then moved to a $140 camera, the $3 from a friend who had Kodak Retina, and who had to repair it every weekend in his house over a cup of tea. He sold it to me, so he had the obligation to repair it. He was a great repair person who is an Intel chief in America and China these days. You know what he used to do? The camera will go off every week, and he will make me sit in his house, take the shutter, compute shutter mechanism out, and put talcum powder from his brother-in-law's family to make the shutter work again. Well, this went on, and I had the good fortunate having Leica M3, Leica Flex. Many people start giving me cameras. At this moment, I am using about 3-4 cameras, and except the last two ones I bought this Christmas, a Lumix with a Leica lens, which cost me only €40, second hand in my area, 3 months guarantee. And another one I bought, Kodak Reflex Bridge, which cost me €99. And I'm so happy about it, no problem. But there will be moments I pass. I was just photographed this morning in my show by one of the persons here, you know, Said Siddiqui Rumi, who's a very close friend. He came to the show and he was baffled. He came with his army. He came with his servant and his brother, and he was carrying the best cameras in the world, you know, like M9, these, that, 3-4 cameras, and he photographed me. If I really ask him, he'll probably lend it to me and probably lend a guard for it also. But one of the pictures you saw in this exhibition where a child is holding a gun here, that was taken with Salgado's camera. Salgado was in Bangladesh and we became good friends. And I really upset Shahidul Alam by not introducing him to BPS and himself, because I was just too busy. I handed him over to Shapon Shah, who take him for the Chittagong work, but Dhaka work I was there. And then I said, oh, Salgado, you have 6 cameras. You know, 3 Leica M6 and 3 Leica Flex. Many people didn't know that he uses reflex. I have proof. I have pictures of him taking pictures with Leica Flex. And then he said, You take any you like, Anwar. I usually go to the field with 2, and the third one remains as a support inside my bag. And the other 3, I said, the other 3, he was in Sonargaon. The other 3 stays in Sonargaon hotel, in the hotel I stay as support. Well, that's what is done by National Geographic. I was commissioned one, I couldn't do it. 6 cameras come, 500 rolls of film come. The film is loaded, tested with a note by the organization, and he sends it to the lobbies like this. So I was privileged to use, and you remember the film Aishwarya Rai's film, which she has done with Devdas, I rarely see Hindi films. I teach cinema, but Hindi film, but recently, wow, Barfi and then Gunde. It changed my life, because my with Surya Digolbari and all that high thought, Metropolis and Chaplin's this film, and 8.5 by Fellini, and Jabri Point and Hossain, the Canadian National Film Board, McLaren's films, etc. So I was suddenly realized I'm getting older and my diabetes is increasing, and then then I realized the reason was all this seriousness in those 2 private universities of teaching serious cinema, the guys who cannot spell film. 9 out of them, 10 of them still says film, including the vice chancellor and the pro vice chancellor, So, anyway, it's good I'm informing it. And what happened, some of my pretty students, who are also, usually girls are my best students, and I have a lot of scandal about it in Bangladesh, and they said, oh, Anwar bhai, egla ki dekhachen? They brought in their pen drive, very good quality of Barfi. That is the film, And then this time I myself saw Gunde, and I'll be very frank with you. If I teach cinema in the future, it will be Barfi and Gunde. Because sorry who don't understand what we are talking about. Because my idea is to teach. And the way to teach is to get a media or get a way by which you can communicate the fastest. And in all my classes, because they got a great teacher, so-called blah, blah, they said me, oh, we should buy 2 or 3 HD cameras for your classes. I said, not at all. I don't even need the normal video camera you have. He said, why not? We could buy some SD. Another university had bought 4 HDs. I said, no, I am teaching my students to work with mobile cameras. You should see the results. They're so happy with mobile cameras. And the experience I got is, I was going out, with photo groups. There are so many photo groups in Bangladesh now, though not a federation like he mentioned, which never took shape. It's a shame. You should make a federation to exist. Anyway, so in these groups I go out, and in the bus we are so happy, and they are singing. I can dance a little bit, I learned the other day. It was the 5th dance of my life. One more and my legs would have collapsed. But anyway, you saved the tripod for that evening. So we go to the village, and there are a group of young boys and girls who are with me, and I look at them, what a beautiful dress, handsome boys and girls with jeans and tuxedo type of thing, again a jeans, they're not the Arafat thing, but gamcha on their head, and a black camera, always with a black and white lens. They look at me, and 1 or 2 girls cried, and later on I realized maybe they were affectionate for me, because they said, the Guru, আপনার এই camera, because I have a little, this Lumix second hand or that kind of camera, And then they go to the location, they proudly get down, and I make some standing rules. Nobody should copy another person's idea. If you're in a landscape or plowing or a village scene or banana trees or whatsoever, young women be careful and mullahs be careful, but if they say no, it's no. Don't insist. But the other pictures you can take in a group. It's a common sin, the Padma. But when someone sees an insect or the part of a wall or a political slogan and goes there or arranges this thing and tries to take a picture, rest of the people should respect it. Do not copy. So that was the law. Now, I got stuck in my own propaganda or sense of ethics, because after 10 minutes they said, we have a big problem. So their leader came and general secretary came. I said, what's your problem? He said, we can't take any pictures. I said, why? He said, with all our cameras and young age, etc., whenever we want to take pictures, someone says, Oh, and, sir has already taken it. So, so apparently you look much faster and you work much faster. So we are repeating all the pictures you took. It's not possible. I said, they have a point, you know. And then I divided them into two other groups with two assistants who took them to the two directions of the village. And in the village, the thing you find, I would like to say how much, it's not only Facebook, how much media and photography is spreading like wildfire in even a country like Bangladesh. I go to the village, a young child is sitting on a, moi. When someone is flying, there is something like a bamboo stair where someone sits, and the father pulls, and the ground is leveled. I don't know the correct English for it. Or a rickshaw puller standing in the village with other rickshaws. So these situations, these people get down and then they do different kind of things, Chandan type, Anwar type, or some other type, and they do. And the surprise comes after. After they are apparently heavy, they are dazed, and they don't even have the courage to look at the girls. These rickshaw pullers seeing a barrage of cameras. And then suddenly, what they do? The moment we are about to go, he goes to his sarong or lungi and turns it the reverse way or anti-clockwise, and he takes out his mobile and films us. That's the beautiful part. How do we know that they are not creating great images? I'll give you two examples of inspirations, and do not underestimate the public. And I'm disgusted with many jury, etc., who always say film and wants to give us awards in cinema. I'll give you two incidents, if you'll kindly listen patiently. And when I tried to say one incident during the Daily Star Award ceremony, I was asked in 2 minutes' time by the well-dressed girl behind that, sir, you have to shorten it down. Minister wants it. So I had to shorten it down, and later on many people are upset, and some professors said this was, amra mantro mugdher moto shunchilam. We were listening to you, spellbound. But the minister probably didn't understand anything. So he went to this, I continued and finished. He went to the stage. I didn't even talk 5 minutes. And I was the recipient of the award of Daily Star, he was judged sometime also. And after all, he started talking, of course. He talked 20 minutes, 1 minute of country and 19 minutes of politics. So these two incidents in my life are about photography and aesthetics. If you listen to it very carefully, you don't need to analyze the pictures really. Incident one, in 71 when I was young, like the Mukti Juddha pictures you see around that time, I was in my village, Ichamoti, the Snake River, which touches the Padma. And in that place, I suddenly was in a ghat. The bank of the river is very small, 200 meters. And it was a really nice bend, making you think of other bends in life. And the sun was setting. Some white flowers are in the kashful was in the background, and backlit trees. And in the foreground, there was a village boat, the transport boat at that time, who will come from Padda or go through Padda, and they will park the moment it is evening. They will park in a ghat for security. And they were cooking, so you could see the smoke coming out of their cooking. And I stopped my bicycle mainly because I saw 2 or 3 lovely girls in wet saris, like wet t-shirts, trying to take water from those ponds, because that is the water we used to drink there at that time. No diarrhea, nothing. Look at Buriganga today. Anyway, they were trying to take water and they will go back home. So I loved the scene, and because I was a village boy of that area, so I don't think nobody will mind. So I took out the 2 or 3 borrowed cameras, Lubitel or Rolleicord or 35mm Zenith, and started photographing. But I had a Contaflex at that time. Jay's Icon Contaflex, which was extremely noisy. Catch! The sound will supersede the rap sound, which Shahidul Alam hates a lot. Anyway, so this Contaflex was there. So I was trying to photograph the girls in their beautiful curves, trying to come up in their wet sari, and the boat there beautiful and the sun setting. But I... don't get me excited. My time is over, and I have 2 kids. And then what happened? so I was waiting, for the perfect picture. I have seen a picture by Azizur Rahman of a similar type in black and white. I was waiting for the moment when, if not some lovely birds in silhouette anyway, at least some crows or bats will pass by during the sunset, then it will be perfect, lyric, Jivanananda Das, the poetic image of Bangladesh. But the birds decide to stay somewhere else hidden. And suddenly I realized someone approaching me, and then I saw a very strong village man, old. He had white beard and it looked golden from the backside, setting sun. He approached me and he said that, Bhatija, tomar kaak mara camera, my cousin, your camera is like a gun which kills crows. It was a counterflex sound. Jay Saikon won't like this statement. Anyway, and I said, yes, I'm very sorry. And he said, but all the pictures you have taken 11 pictures. I have counted because it's a crow killing camera. I said, yes, but I'm very sorry. What's wrong? He said, you made 11 photos, and I was watching, because he was too old to watch the girls, anticipated, saint. And at the same time, he said, but you missed it every time. I said, I missed what? And he said, do you notice that the boat is throwing water, shecha, when they drain water from the boat for the base of the boat to dry, in spare time they do it. And when they were doing it, the water is flowing like a beautiful golden melted gold curve into the water, into the river, being lit from the backside by the sun. I said, wow. And he said, I could spare the splash of the water. Your shutter didn't click at that time. That's aesthetics. You see, we have to develop it. Oh, I need rest in my talk. Questions, please. Yes, I was.
Number photo, the bride was taken to somewhere like
58.
Yeah, 58.
Ola, where is
What was the bride riding on? What's that thing called in Bangla?
it's Palki, I guess. 58 ta kothay?
Palki. Okay.
Palka in English. But why? Okay, this is, let me explain this picture. This is traditional Palka of Bangladesh, and the last time I saw one was only 2-3 years ago at Birisiri, one of our remote areas near the Indian border. It still exists, and I was really surprised to see Birisiri and a crowd which is going by. But it does exist, but there is two big differences. Difference number one is that it's not as decorated or as glorious like this. This was during an epoch when roads didn't exist much. The boats had their sails for a long journey without engines. But now Bangladesh, all the boats have engines. And there are so many roads which have been built everywhere. People travel, people do marry. And one of the most expensive and colorful thing in Bangladesh which happens, which can put this picture to shame, is the marriage photography which happens in Bangladesh. And I often get mails or phone calls from India saying, wow, what an attempt for marriage photography in Bangladesh. So much money is spent and so much activities. The poor brides, I don't know what they do for lovemaking at the night. But anyway, and these don't exist here anymore in this form, but it still does exist. It's called Palki. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we have that last question perhaps? Because Anwar is around. If you want, we can continue. We have a small break after this. Question, please.
Thank you. Sir, my question is that I have seen some photographers like you who used to, who are more comfortable using SLR cameras or manual cameras per se rather than using digital cameras. And they often complain that today's photographers use photo editing techniques more than photography itself, and techniques like Adobe Photoshop or other editing techniques. And the great pictures that we see around from around the world are mostly moment photographs, and we cannot really say that these are completely free of technologies. They all have some technologies embedded. So what is your take on that? Because I have seen reservations of photographers who are used to using manual cameras against digital techniques or against editing techniques. So what is your opinion in that?
Thank you very much, Asebu. Please sit down. My answer is very reserved in that sense. I think it's a wrong statement to think like that. It's a little like my child is the most beautiful child in the world. It's like this. There is nothing wrong in technology. Photography itself is technology. Cinema itself is not real. You go to a theater and you see so many things happen, War and Peace or Chaplin or Sujyoti Golbari, and you cry and try to hug the person beside you, and the children gets afraid. That all kind of emotions come in the dark room, in the room which happens. So it is the duty of the artist to use any material available at that moment of history in science and technology to express his soul through that media. There is absolutely nothing wrong with digital, or absolutely nothing wrong with Photoshop, or absolutely nothing wrong with ancient cameras. The problem people and professionals and many other people complain about digital is extremely misused. The problem is when technology becomes too easy, it is extremely misused. If you can justify a photograph with a lot of Photoshop, and if the audience can get a deep feeling out of it, and technically if yourself or some people can think this could not be done with normal photography, it's fine, no problem.
Okay. On that note, I think we'll need to stop there because we need a short break before the next thing comes in. But Anwar is around. So
I am here,
yeah?
Alam. I am here. I live in the villages here. Oh, I love the birds here, and people with wet saris. Anyway, so I will not going to the village tomorrow. I'll go after the end of the show. I find it very exciting to be amongst you. You are welcome to Alliance Française, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. any day to discuss with me. It's a nice environment created by Drick. Thank you.
Thank you. Please don't leave the room because we're going to start in 2 minutes. Yeah? So unless you have to go to the loo or whatever, please don't leave the room. We're going to start right away. Yeah? Thank you. After 2 minutes, they'll have a film. It's the last session of Chobi Mela VIII. And it's not an accident that we've saved this particular presentation till the end. The person I'm going to introduce you to is someone who'll be very familiar to many of you, but perhaps not to those from outside. A very important photographer who's had a very important contribution, but also someone who has played a very important role, not simply as a photographer, but in establishing the standing of photography in Bangladesh. Sadly, photography has not always been understood, not always been respected, and it has required people to, through their presence, through their personality, through their work, provide credibility, respectability to the profession. And Anwar Hussein is certainly one of the people who's played an extremely important role in that. There's a lot of people who've been here in the last week or so who've remarked on the changes that have taken place in Bangladesh, the very high quality of photography in Bangladesh. And it would be wrong to assume that those of us in front of you now are the only ones who've done it. It's happened because of a lot of people who've done incredibly good work behind the scenes. Some of them are not around anymore, but they have left their legacy, and I would like to take this opportunity to remember them all. Certainly there was and is Bangladesh Photographic Society, an extremely important organization which really played the role of holding the photographic movement together. when I joined the Bangladesh Photographic Society, it didn't have its own place, it didn't have its own gallery, it didn't have a darkroom, but it did have a very important thing. It had a soul and it had a little newspaper, a newsletter, an A5 newsletter printed in newsprint. And when I took over the running of the society, we were in a huge mess. I mean, for a start, hugely in debt, in a disarray in many senses, and it was something that needed to be resurrected. And a person I turned to at that time to help me in that process was Anwar Hussein. His work was known, his work was something I admired, but here was a person who was not only a very talented photographer, but very articulate, in both Bangla and English, very conversant, knew the scene very well, and also had many other skills from as a designer, as someone with a graphic sense, and I felt that this was one person who could really transform this magazine. And one of the things that I at that time lamented was the fact that we had a photographic society newsletter which didn't have photographs, largely because we didn't have the money. You know, it was done in newsprint. So Anwar is in some ways a difficult guy to deal with, but I took him on anyway, and our idea was that it would have photographs. But, you know, as I mentioned, he was the right person to have do that, but he was also very exacting. And he didn't want the newsprint newsletter to come out as it was. He wanted better paper, he wanted fine art paper, he wanted two-color printing, he wanted it to be an offset. At that time we were printing in letterpress. But he's always also prepared to work very hard at making it happen. So one of the things he did was he was able to pull in a large number of people from various places, and that was the time, because prior to that, the newsletter was really that, a newsletter. It had news items, information about contest, what had happened there, a compilation of news items. Anwar was the person who transformed it into what I consider a literary and a photographic magazine, albeit in a very small manner. His work was something which was also very important for us, because at that time there were two schools of photography. There was the salon photography, which Bangladesh Photographic Society largely practiced, and these were pretty pictures following the rules of thirds and all the other stupid rules that we told in photographic school and camera clubs. And the photojournalists, who completely rejected us because they thought we were not really photographers. There was also a problem at our end. The Photographic Society people, we considered the press photographers to not be really photographers because they were not artists. They were people merely providing illustrations. So there was this very big divide between the two, to the extent that the Press Photographers Association brought out a rule that if one of their members joined the Bangladesh Photographic Society, that member would lose his or her membership. It was as extreme as that. But even within that space, we continued working, and Anwar played a very important role. He also played an important role in setting up the Federation of Photographic Society, which attempted to merge these many disparate streams and put them together. I'm not going to talk about his work, because you will see his work and he will talk about his own work, and he's a very articulate photographer, so he certainly doesn't need me to talk about it. But I think it is worthwhile for us to remember that here was a person who took on photography at a time when photography was not as well known, as respected, as rewarding, and certainly as easy to do as it is today. And I think if we look at the evolution of photography in Bangladesh, if you look at the changes that have taken place, Anwar Hussein's presence is a very important turning point in photography, not only in Bangladesh, but I think for that time in the region. So I'm not taking any more time. Someone I'm very proud to present, Anwar Hussein.
শুভ সন্ধ্যা আমার আলোকচিত্রী বন্ধুরা, এত নতুন প্রাণ এখানে দেখে আমি খুব আনন্দিত অনুভব করছি। মাই ডিয়ার expatriate or visiting photographer friends, good evening and bonjour. আমাকে